But what's been happening on ET now is that we are partnering with very interesting brokerage houses to get some very interesting discussions, and one such endeavor is this alternate infra financing conference. Edelweiss, Wells Fargo, and Nikunj is joining us from the sidelines, or rather at the conference, and he will have the top honchos of Edelweiss. And Nikunj, infra is something that everybody is hoping for. How is the mood this early in the morning at the conference? I tell you, just when I thought that we had Nikunj, we just lost him for a moment. I think we'll get him in just moments from now. But it's a very interesting array of guests that we'll get today, because aside of course, just the companies, we'll get a lot of political voices as well. And Nikunj, which was my question to you really, it's too early in the morning, 8:10 for people to start arriving. But how is the mood, Nikunj?
Well, Neeraj, you've introduced the topic very well. It's all about infra. That's where I think the real hope factor for the market is. General assumption is that Indian economy will make a comeback and capex or investment cycle will pick up. The soft high frequency data, whether it is CV sales or IP data, is indicating that the natural progression or the trajectory for the economy is clearly northbound, and the worst of the print is behind us. But how does one really connect the dots here and translate that into money making opportunity? In stock markets, whatever you do, it's all about making money, and to identify some money making ideas, big trends and themes, I have the man who is instrumental behind this lovely conference, Vikas Khemani. Vikas, wonderful to have you back. Thank you for joining us. Infra conference. Who is interested in buying infra and cyclical stocks? There are no numbers. There is no recovery in capex, and banks are not giving money to the infrastructure sector.
This is what this whole conference is all about. I think what we're trying to do out here is that I think given the need of infrastructure funding over the next 5-7 years, given the committed or planned outlay by the government, there's a huge need, but we don't have enough instrument either in form of bank credit or any other alternative instrument. So how do we kind of create this funding available for the infrastructure need? And this conference is all about that, creating an alternative. There are not many instruments available at this point in time, in India, which can cater to or meet the needs of infrastructure. One side, infrastructure are long-term projects, whereas most of the credit in India we see is anywhere between 5 to 10 years. And plus, if you look at the total outstanding credit of Indian banks versus the need of the infrastructure, I think there's a huge gap. So hence there is an urgent need to sort of come out with new innovative financing structures, and this conference is going to deliberate on all those such possible sort of instruments.
So what is the broad communication? Infrastructure is the need of the hour. Absolutely. Infrastructure sector needs money. The corporate capex cycle is in a funk right now. Private banks honestly don't want to give money to infra companies, and PSU banks don't have money to give to infrastructure sector. So how will this sector grow?
See, there are two parts to it. One is the financing, other is execution. I think execution part largely delves into the policy issues, regulatory framework and all those things, which I think is a separate domain, and I think government is dealing with them, and that, everything else obviously depends on that. Unless that falls into place, nothing else will fall into place. So this is, we were assuming that over next 6 to 12 months, government is going to work hard in terms of making those things in place. But if they fall into place, then where the money is going to come from, and that is what you need to plan out. That is what you need to, because both needs to coexist, both needs to happen together.
So let's break the infra space. You've got road companies, you've got machinery companies, you've got IP companies, and you've got BOT stroke toll companies. Yes. What are you hot on?
So it's not about, according to us, money is going to be required on all spaces, and all segments are good, depending upon what kind of regulatory framework comes out. According to me, road is very, very attractive investment opportunity. Ports are one of the most sort of sustainable business models around the globe, and so we are.
No, that's MBA definition, that roads are required, ports will be important, power plants is the need of the hour. Give me something specific.
But what a specific I can give you? I can only tell you that these segments would need huge amount of capital investment. Now that capital is available to go into. World over, if you see, investors are keen to invest into those companies, into those segments. Having said that, we need to regulatory framework and an environment where investors are comfortable around earning sustainable yields. Unfortunately, in the recent past, we have not had that kind of environment. And if we are able to create that, I am sure markets and investors would be able to give that alternative way of financing these assets. And trust me, all assets are good, depending on what kind of framework you have, environment you have around that. And that says a lot. And according to me, there will be a lot of money once we get all these things into play, which can come into this segment, and that is what we are trying to sort of showcase today, where lots of companies would be coming in, regulators are there, ministers are there, and some of the investors are there who are going to outline that what needs to be done to sort of get this money into.
So the unique bit about today's conference is that infrastructure is the need of the hour. There is a liquidity crisis in the system, but how will this sector pick up, and what are the alternate ways of financing the cash starved infrastructure sector? That is the theme.
I wouldn't call it liquidity crisis. I would see the need of the sector is far higher. There is money available in the sector. How do we sort of channelize into the
That's a lovely theme. That's a lovely. How markets looking?
I think this is not about, honestly speaking, in a short-term market perspective. It is, I think, more from a long-term
generally, I'm
perspective.
talking about the markets. I mean, how are they looking? Because 8 days on the trot, Nifty has gone up last week. Same time last week, we were sub 8,000.
Yes.
And indeed, this market has managed to climb the wall of worry.
No, I think markets are, if you again, I would say short-term can go anywhere depending on, because there are lots of events. I think, these exit worries are kind of staring you all the time. They keep on coming in various forms. So I think, monsoon thankfully has kind of settled down. So we probably can build hopes around the rate cut in the next policy. So markets by and large are consolidating in a narrow range of 8,000 to 8,300-400 levels. According to me, medium-term perspective to long-term perspective, markets still look attractive. As I said earlier also in our interaction, that this is probably one of the best time if you want to build portfolio from long-term perspective, because you won't get these levels once the earning cycle starts picking up, which will probably be December quarter onwards. I think you won't get these levels again.
So you think we've got a trading bottom in place? It could be 8,000, it could be 7,900, it could be 7,800, but the downside is measurable. The downside is not unlimited.
Yes. And unless, I think the only caveat I would say, which I do not know the answer, that how the grease pans out, unless if a default kind of situation happens, short term nobody can predict, because I don't think one is, at least I am capable of, deciphering that what could be the implication if these defaults. So short-term trading bottom, but I think broadly I find, based on our interaction, that around 8,000 levels, long-term investors are very comfortable putting money into India.
A one-line answer on earnings. 15th of July, first number will come out. Are we in for a treat or a retreat?
I don't think there will be any significant upside. I think broadly it will be in line with market expectation. According to me, volume-led growth, volume-led recovery will only start happening somewhere later part of the this financial calendar years, maybe in December, maybe in March next year. But I don't think July or June or September earnings would have anything significant to kind of deliver. Having said that, I am not a believer that they will also be disappointing in a big way. So hence,
the worst is behind us. That's a good way of looking at it. Glass half full, not glass half empty. It's lovely to partner with Edelweiss, and we will be here the entire day. It's back to you guys in the studio. As of now, all the registrations have just started, but I expect a full house, and Vikas has assured me that 3 ministers, we've got the power minister, we've got Mr. Oil and Gas minister, and we've got MOS Finance coming in the evening. So we are in for a galaxy of ministers who would be showcasing the strength of India infrastructure.
Action-packed day that is lined up. Nikunj, of course, we will be tracking it on the ground. Minute by minute, hour by hour, and those are the voices that matter, which you will find exclusively on ET Now through today's session. So stay tuned to the channel to get an insight of what these stalwarts have to say about the state of the economy. We will be talking a lot more of global cues and local cues this morning.